Don't ask me about my contract.
Rick, you've been honest with us about why you wanted to wait until after the season before you talked about your contract, and also that you needed to kind of debrief with Patrick and Jim and players. How long do you think the process will take before you know your status for next year?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, we'll probably talk about it more in a couple of days, but you know, there's things that you got to go through the process. There's a lot of different things, right? You got to go through, and you know, the season just ended. Obviously, you know, you just move along and see where it goes, right? But there's a lot, you know, there's more stuff we got to talk about.
You coached for an extra month last year.
Yeah.
Has this been harder this year?
The season? Yeah. Well, it's been I mean every season's, you know, the one thing is you put your heart and soul in it, right? The coaches, you know, we worked really hard at it, and sometimes when you don't make the playoffs, you got to look at yourself, you know, what could we? That's what we're going to go through is what we could have done better. Really, that's what I have to look at myself, and then you reflect and you go from there, and then you make changes or positive, you know, reinforcements or whatever you do. You know, I think it's important that we reflect on it.
As you go through your process in the next couple of days and make a decision, obviously dollar and term matters, but how much does that matter versus the direction of the team and what you hear from Jim and Patrick about potential changes and things that they're going to do to get this righted?
Yeah, it's like anybody. When you analyze stuff, you got to check boxes, right? And I got an unreal relationship with Patrick and Jim, so you know, you go through the boxes. You know, you check them off. It's just like a player, free agent. It's no different than trades. It's all that stuff. You got to go through that process. It really is a process. So that's really what it comes down to.
Rick, just your thoughts on the game as a whole and the finish to the season for your group.
Yeah, it was half decent early, and then third, execution again. But you know, like I said, last game of the year, I thought the first part was pretty good.
Lankinen left after 2 periods.
Yeah, he pinched something. He just felt uncomfortable, so didn't want to risk anything.
It's kind of a weird situation just for these guys. I mean, they know the end is been near for a bit, and just to see it come to an end.
Yeah, it sucks, right? And, you know, we talked about that this morning, but you know, you got to learn from adversity. You know, you look at a team like Vegas. You know, that's what you strive for. You know, they wear you down, heavy on pucks. You know, you got to win puck battles, things like that. But you know, use it as motivation. You know, to win in this league, you got to go through pitfalls.
Take me through what the next 48 hours are going to be like for you with player meetings and things like that coming up.
Yeah, you know, you know, the exit meetings they're 10, 15 minutes with each guy. I mean, it's more than that down the road. You make phone calls, you go visit guys. That's a whole, you know. But I think it's good for a 15-minute conversation to touch base what's going to happen and you know, what you want to do in the summers and stuff like that. And that's really it, the process of it.
Rick, 11 months ago in this room, right after, like within 20 minutes of your season ending, you were really quick to spotlight sort of the idea of putting respect back in the jerseys as something you were proud to have accomplished last season. Obviously a different feel this time around, but how do you reflect just as it's ended on sort of what you experienced over the past 7 months?
Yeah, I don't want to really play the what-if game. I think you got to reflect on the year, like, you know, what could you have did different, scenarios, situations. You know, I'm not going to use excuses at all. You know, I know that you guys know this year what's happened, but you got to deal with that stuff. You know, could we have dealt with it better? You know, things like that, and that's why you got to take a deep dive. You know, we talked about embracing the hard at the start of the year, and you know, maybe we weren't ready for it.
Last week of the season, for an eliminated team, the pace kind of slows a little bit inevitably, even if, you know, you're still getting professional efforts, and you largely did. But then you sort of have in the third period, Kiefer Sherwood still throwing hits. Looked like he upset Jack Eichel on it, obviously upset Nick Hague. What do you take from that, if anything?
Well, that's what you need, right? You want that kind of attitude. You're right, you know. But, you know, at that point, like, you know, the microcosm is we have the goalie pulled. We got 3 guys not moving in the middle of the ice, and like that's kind of sometimes what happens, and we got to go through that barrier. You need the Sherwoods and those guys to keep pushing. That's what we need, and that's really what it comes down to. So yeah.
In a similar note, I mean, you were eliminated last
Yeah.
week, but the last
Sure.
2-3 weeks have been, sort of on that edge. How challenging has it been for you as a coach in terms of approaching this sort of end of the season that wasn't what you wanted?
Right. It's challenging, but you also, like, there's guys in that room that, 6, 7 guys from Abbotsford, the younger guys that you can't show them that you're frustrated and you're, whatever. You gotta keep coaching these guys because, they're the future and their careers, they're impactful. You want to be impactful with them. So that's what I was proud of the coaches. We kept on coaching even tonight, Yogi's got the, a play there. Obviously, we didn't execute it with the goal he pulled, but you just keep coaching. You got to just keep coaching hard.
And then, I mean, you bring these young guys
Yeah.
up. I mean, you see them in preseason
Yeah.
in a sort of NHL context, but this is the NHL context.
Yeah, yeah.
What will you draw out from what you've? I mean, I guess you'll go back and look and see what their games were like. But what will you be looking for in the in your review of these last few games? To see
Well, it's a good question. I think the first thing you look for is effort right away. I think that's the easiest one to pinpoint, and then there's digesting a game plan and can they execute it, or if you're, I think can you retain the information and apply it the next game? Things like that you look for. But there's a lot of guys are really tried out there, and I got to give them a lot of credit, especially down the stretch.
You're usually pretty stoic on the bench, but during Pat O'Neill's celebration at the
Yeah.
end, even you had a nice smile on your face. A lot of people think of an equipment manager and,
Yeah.
that, but I mean, there's so much more. What did he bring to this club?
Just consistency, just as constant consistency. Whether you lose 5-0, win 5-0, he always brought the same the next day. Like he's one of the, he's one of the. I call him the godfather of all the trainers. Like he's one of those guys that you go any team that comes in. I don't care if it's Ottawa or it's San Jose. He's always got 3 or 4 people coming down to say hi to him because he's been here 40 years and he's done a hell of a job. I think every player will say that he's the same thing. He's constant. He's a great human being. And I don't think he's done in the sense, right? I think he'll still do some stuff. I hope he does some stuff for the Canucks because, but I think he's had his time. I think he wants to. I don't know if does Patty golf? I don't know if he golfs, but he just.
One of the things too. I mean, he's one of the guys that reads the room in a way, right? He gets the temperature of the team, and with his experience, obviously, it's going to be tough to replace.
Yeah, I feel like those guys like Stan Wilson. Same thing as he was in Arizona and stuff, and Patty. They've been there for years. You wish those guys could win a cup. That Patty's like a guy. I wish you could win him a cup. Same thing, a guy like Stan Wilson. Those guys are just hard. It hurts when they lose too. Like they hurt. Like everything's about the players, but the trainers, man, they put a lot of hours in, and they're slugging bags, and they're, win or lose, they're always doing the same thing, and they're part of the team. So yeah, it'd be nice. I actually hoped we won tonight for Patty, but didn't work out that way.
Tyler Myers this morning was the latest Canuck player to gush about the impact that you've had on him. What's it mean to you, the guys like he and Quinn and others have kind of gone to bat and talked about how much you mean to their careers?
Yeah, no, they're terrific guys to coach. I appreciate it, but those guys are, you come every day, and when there's adversity or when things are going good, these guys they're the same, right? They work hard. They're low maintenance guys. They want to win. They get frustrated like everybody, but every day they're Patty. They're constant. Every day, Tyler Myers or Quinn Hughes, every day at practice, where they do the same thing. They work hard. So we just got to kind of group a bunch of guys like that and keep moving forward.
As you
Niels Höglander feels like a player from the beginning of the year to now has gone through a lot of growth.
Yeah.
Tonight, on the one goal you guys score, he's winning the battle in the corner against 2 players. Can you speak to that growth and what you've seen and how he's found a role, found a way that he can contribute?
Yeah, no, Hoggy, his first half was, had a tough year, right? And I think the last, 7 weeks, he's been one of our better guys, right? Taking the information. But, it's the same thing with him. He's got to He's got to really work on a few things this summer. Retention of hockey IQ, things like that. He's got to stay focused. I mean, these are things that when you're 24, 25, to get to the next level, you got to really do that. And I think the Hoggy's got to, and we got to help him, don't get me wrong. But the retention of stuff, the hockey IQ, that's the thing he's got to continue to work with, because you watch him some nights, he's a hell of a player. But then he's got to make sure that he stays focused and things like that. But that's for the year-end exit, and that's where you really got to help a kid like that.
Give it up nice and loud for them.
We're trying to build something for the next couple years.
That go through my tuck?
Will now present you the GOAT.
Generational talent. Thanks for liking the video and subscribing.